Hey guys, this is James with Isotropic, and in this video I'm going to teach you guys how to add Lotties to the Oxygen Builder using the Lottie web player. So this is what ships with all the Lottie files that you can find in lottiefiles.com. We're talking about Lotties today because they're a great alternative to GIFs and any other type of animation, so a video or a JavaScript animation. Super lightweight, they come as JSON files. There's a huge library of them, and you can also make your own on Adobe After Effects. It's just a really great tool to use to animate things on your site. There's also a lot of interactivity that can be added fairly easily using the method that I'm going to show today. So if you're looking to add interactive animations to a WordPress website built with Oxygen, this is your best bet. Trialing a new type of education, so I'm going to have this YouTube video as well as a blog post on the blog, and I'm also going to have a cheat sheet. So this cheat sheet, you can access it via a link in the description below, and it'll give you all the code. It'll give you everything that makes up this page, so you can poke around and see how exactly it was made. Click on the link in the description below, copy and paste the shortcodes, take those Oxygen shortcodes, make a new page, go to shortcodes, paste them in. I don't think I have shortcodes on, but paste the shortcodes in, click the publish button, and then you'll have access to this cheat sheet. So here's the cheat sheet, instructions, links to the video and the guide. Here's a step-by-step process on how to add them. So I'll go over this when we're looking at the code, but very simple. Integrate 2 scripts via CDN or self-hosting, then upload a Lottie JSON to your WordPress website, or use the JSON link from the Lottie Files website, and then add the Lottie to your website using the Lottie Player HTML, which is a new element that the 2 scripts above add. So you do Lottie Player src equals the link to the JSON file, set the background color, set the speed, set the style, loop it, autoplay it, show or hide controls using these attributes, and I'll show you how exactly it works in a few seconds. Then you add, if you want to be interactive, you can set it via various interactivity rules using JavaScript. You don't need to know JavaScript to do this. Very simple, very easy, and I'll show you in a few seconds. I'm going to show you what we're going to make, and then I'm going to just hop into the back and show you how to do it. So here's a basic Lottie. This is a loading box. You can show it anywhere on the site, but this is really made to show you how a basic Lottie works. Animated element, and it is just playing and it's looping through. There's no controls, there's no nothing. You can't really do much associated with it. It's just showing you an animation. A practical use of just playing a Lottie as a loop would be as a landing page, and you'll see this on many websites. So say, for example, I'm selling hosting. This would be my hero for the hosting company. It'd be, I'm selling hosting, here's my value proposition, buy now. And then this is a Lottie that's animated on a loop, and then we can integrate it into the background via PNG images or overlays or something like that. But this is a cool little thing that makes you stand out, makes you look a little more professional than some other sites. Another great use of Lotties are micro interactions. So we can play on hover very easily, and then we can play on click by doing a little extra coding, which I'll show you exactly how to do. And we're going to be using the Lottie web player for the majority of things, and then we're also going to use the native body moving library if we're going to do clicks, and I'll show you how it works. It's not very complicated. So play it on a click, play it on a click, and these are good examples of what you can do with a Lottie. Congratulations, you got a gift. You open the gift, and maybe a email gets sent to you, or maybe you get a discount code displayed to you. So these type of animations are really beneficial in many different ways. They're also, again, super lightweight, much better than GIFs, much better than most JavaScript, stuff like that. Here's a really good code pen that shows you a practical effect of a Lottie. So this would be a menu toggle. You're up in the corner, you're trying to toggle a full screen menu, click it once, and then there's your X. Click it again to get rid of it, and you could set up JavaScript to toggle your menu. And you can actually do this in Oxygen Builder with a modal. It could be really cool. So then we can set up an interactive Lottie scroll. So this is synchronized to the body, and as we scroll, it toggles through the frames. Faster we scroll, the faster the frames go. The slower we scroll, the slower the frames go. Very unique. This would be actually a really nice divider for a event page 2021. Just another example of using that as the page. So maybe you're a shipping company and you just want to show a box. Here's our box. Pretty cool. And then this is synchronized to the specific container. So this is as our columns show up, which is the container that we're identifying to toggle the synchronization to the scroll. As you scroll from here to here, the animation will toggle through. So this enters the viewport, the animation starts. It exits the viewport down here, the animation stops, and it only plays in this page. Whereas these animations cycle through the page multiple times. So as you scroll, they'll play multiple times. So you might have to do a little messing around to make them work. This is a really cool effect that I really like doing, a Lottie sticky scroll. So the element's sticky, but text moves. And this isn't the best example of how to use it, but as it's sticky to the content, various things will happen to the content. You'll read through the content, and this will morph alongside of it. Pretty cool effect. Could be integrated a little bit better, but this was the best I could do for this cheat sheet. And then maybe a full page animation that's synchronized to your scroll. That's pretty cool. This is done by using a big Lottie and then positioning it absolutely in the center of this, and then chopping off the rest of it using overflow hidden or maybe z-index. I don't know. And then we're at the bottom of our cheat sheet, and just a couple informational sections about using Hydrogen Pack, using advanced scripts. These are 2 recommended third-party plugins that are paid but super worth it. All right, now it's time to get into it. I'm going to show you how exactly we integrate Lotties into Oxygen. So say you have your basic page and you're setting everything up, and you're ready to go, and you want to add a single Lottie to your Oxygen Builder website. Let's actually look at lottiefiles.com. This is a huge repository of all the Lottie files. And say you want to integrate, I really like this Santa. I want to integrate him into my website. Simply click on the Lottie file. Up will pop a couple things, and we'll take a look at that, and then we'll take a look at how to add it. So we want to integrate Santa into our website. We really like this Lottie. So the first thing to do is add 2 JavaScript libraries, and that can be through a CDN or self-hosting. In this example, we're using a code block to add it. So here's our code block that adds it. We're integrating the Lotties. There are 2 things. We're adding the player, and we're adding the interactivity engine. This is done by using CDN delivered scripts. So you can just copy and paste this. This just gets the latest version of each script. Or you can self-host it. And I actually don't recommend using a code block to integrate this. This is just so it could be self-contained on this one page, so you can easily add it to your own website. But I would take these scripts and add them by either using advanced scripts to add them as a third-party script, which means they'll always be up to date, or by uploading them to my website and then calling them into the website using PHP. There are multiple ways to go around about doing this, but I definitely recommend not doing it through a code block. You should use advanced scripts, or you should use code snippets to get that done. So we've added these 2 scripts to the website. They're in the header of the WordPress website, which means they're being toggled on the pages that we need them. So once these 2 scripts are added, it's very, very simple and very easy to integrate a basic Lottie. We have our scripts added to the page, and now we want to add, say, a Lottie to our landing hero. First thing we do, and only thing for a simple Lottie, we go and we add this. This is your HTML element that toggles the Lottie. So here's your Lottie player. The src links to the JSON file of the Lottie. So this would be your JSON file if you're trying to add Santa. It's a JSON link, and this is a CDN for Lottie files. You can also, I would recommend hosting it yourself, which means download the link, download the JSON onto your computer, and then upload it onto your WordPress website. And you'll need to activate JSON uploads to do that, because they're blocked for security purposes on the default WordPress website. There's a link in the description on how to do that. So we take our Lottie file, however it's hosted. In this case, it's actually hosted on a GitHub repository of mine, because I wanted to remove the background and I couldn't host it on anything else. So this is actually hosted on another third-party place. But as long as it's a JSON Lottie, it'll work. So src equals the Lottie JSON file. The background, you can set it to be anything you want. The speed, you can set it to be anything you want. 1 is the default speed that it was animated at. The style is how big you want it to be. So I wanted mine to be 500 pixels high with his auto, and then it loops and it auto plays. We can also add 2 additional things in, which would be hover, if you wanted to only play on hover, and if you wanted the controls, such like if you're looking at a video player, if you wanted controls, it would be the same thing. You would add controls, and then that would toggle the controls. And you can take a look at how it actually works in the generator. So if you go to your Lottie and you want to use it in your site, go to use this animation in, click on HTML, and then here is a generator. You can set up your play mode, direction, background color, width, height, animation speed, hover, loop, autoplay, controls. Very simple. We've already added the script to the header of our WordPress website, so we don't need to do that. And then here's your code that you basically throw into a code block in Oxygen. That's it. If you're wanting to add a very basic, just looping Lottie, that's how you do it. Very simple, very basic. So that would be how you add the hosting Lottie. Now let's take a look at some micro interactions. If you want to do it where you simply hover over a Lottie for it to play, so this coin spins, these coffee mugs do coffee mug things when you're hovering over them, that's very simple, and you don't need any JavaScript, you don't need any additional code. All you do is take your Lottie player, set everything to be the same except add hover and loop. There's no autoplay and there's no controls on this. It's only hover and loop. So it will only play on hover, and it will continuously loop as you hover over the element. If you want to play it on the click, that's a little more complicated and requires a different method. So I'm going to talk about that at the end of this video. But if you want to play it on a click, you can do that pretty easily. All right, so now let's get into the interactivity part of this video. So we want to make these Lotties interactive to our page. So the types of interaction we're going to do is animation to scroll based on the body, based on the container, a sticky animation based on the scroll, and then we'll also wrap it up with a play on click and how to do that. So this is where we need additional JavaScript, and that's why we added the second JavaScript code, which is the interactivity engine. So this is the player, and if you don't want any interactions, you don't need to add the interactivity library, but this is an add-on library created by this website, which makes things easy to make interactive. So that's how we're going to do this. We've added our script. This should be in the header of your WordPress website. Use advanced scripts, use code snippets. Don't use a code block unless you really need to. I don't recommend using a code block for that. But now let's take a look at how we can do this. And here's our effect again. As we scroll, it toggles your individual frames within the Lottie. And if you scroll up, it goes backwards. If you scroll down, it goes forward. It's pretty cool. The way we're going to do that is very simple. We've added the 2 JavaScript libraries. We're going to add the Lottie the same way we added the other ones. The only difference here is that we're setting up an ID, which can be anything that's unique. Here's our src, which is the link to the JSON file. It can be from lottiefiles.com. That's the CDN that you can get many Lottie files from. It can be self-hosted. I would recommend self-hosting it if you can. And then you set the style, and that's it. So style, the link, and the ID. From that, and then this is just information for if it doesn't load. From that, the only other thing we're going to do is use a tiny bit of JavaScript to specify that it's going to load interactively and play interactively on the site. So this is what we're going to do. Lottie interactivity.create, and then the mode is going to be scroll, and then we're going to identify what this mode is applying to. So this mode is going to apply to this specific identifier for a specific Lottie file on the website. And then we're going to set the actions. The visibility is going to be, it goes from 0 to 1. The type is seek, and the frames are the 0 to the actual number of frames contained within the Lottie. Very, very simple, very basic. And this will make it cycle through the entire Lottie animation as you scroll down the page, like so. And that's all you need to do. So add the JavaScript to the codeblock JavaScript, add the HTML to the codeblock PHP, and you now have an interactive scrolling Lottie on your website. And now let's take a look at how to do this a little bit easier than I just described. So we want this to be interactive. The way we're going to make it interactive is by going down and clicking the interactivity section. This will load a pre-populated web page that shows you how to integrate it into your website. And it discusses what I just discussed, which is setting up your script, installing it via CDN or third party, or hosting it yourself, adding the Lottie to your HTML, so Lottie player, your unique ID, your Lottie JSON URL, your style, and that's it. And then we're going to configure the library. So there are multiple ways to do this. Syncing the Lottie with the scroll, simply take this JavaScript right here, copy, paste, and then throw it into the JavaScript section of the code block. Make sure you are applying the identifier to the right JSON Lottie element, but other than that, that's really all you need to do. So again, if you want to synchronize it with a scroll, you're going to go into Oxygen, add a code block, make sure you have the 2 JavaScript libraries added to your site. You're going to add the Lottie player, specify the Lottie that you're going to be playing through the URL, give it a unique ID, and then you're going to go into the JavaScript and you're going to add this code, which can be found on this page, the interactivity page, which can be loaded by going to an individual Lottie from lottiefiles.com and then clicking on interactivity, and that's it. So now we have our Lottie that scrolls with the page. Another example, just do the same thing with a different Lottie SRC. Another example, and this is now a little bit different. And we get the code from the same page, and instead of toggling the Lottie by the entire body being scrolled, we're only going to toggle the Lottie based on the scroll only when a specific container enters the viewport. So that's what this code is here for. And you can basically copy and paste this code if you want. But you take the code, you throw the JavaScript into the JavaScript section of your website. So here's our JavaScript, and then here's our PHP Lottie player. And the only different thing about this JavaScript, which specifies that it's only going to scroll when the container's in the viewport, is that we specify our container. So we say container is these columns right here, and when these columns enter the viewport, we're going to play this element right here, which is the Lottie. The mode is still scroll. This doesn't change, visibility 0 to 1, type seek, and the frames are 0 to the total number of frames within the Lottie. And this is automatically generated when you use this method of going to the interactivity section, but you can find the total number of frames by just going here. So this Lottie right here has a total number of frames of 71 individual frames. So if we were adding it, it would be 0 and 71. So that's how you do the container sync. The other thing, and a effect that I use a lot, is a sticky Lottie effect. So you have a lot of content on one side of the page. You have a single Lottie that's centered in the viewport, and as you scroll down, the Lottie will play. So it's pretty cool. It doesn't look super awesome here, but it's a very neat effect that you can probably understand how you can use it in your site to make some cool effects. So what we're going to do first is take your Lottie and install it. And the way we're going to install it is using the method that I just discussed, which is a Lottie scroll based on a container sync. So when the container enters the page, it starts playing. When the container exits the page, it stops playing, and it plays all of its frames as you scroll through the container. So we're going to do that by adding our HTML section, Lottie player, setting the unique ID, setting the SRC, which defines what the actual Lottie is going to look like, and that's it. We'll set it to be 400 and 400. From that, we're going to make this code block sticky. So we're going to go to CSS, and we're going to make it sticky. So we're going to take the ID of this code block and then set position sticky, position WebKit sticky, and set the top to be 50 pixels. What this does is, and you'll see it here, it makes the code block stick to the top of the page. So here's all of our content, and it'll just stick at the top of the page as you scroll down. And this sticky effect can be used anywhere on your site for anything, but I like using it with Lottie's. Here's a big, long list of content, and usually you do bigger content. You can do really large words, stuff like that. So your Lottie's integrated, and the final thing to do is set it so when this section enters the viewport, it starts playing. So it's not playing, it's not playing, it's not playing, it's now playing. It cycles through all of its frames, and the second you hit this bottom viewport, the bottom part of the viewport to the top of the view frame, or bottom part of the section to the top of the viewport, it stops playing. So it plays all of its frames as you scroll through it, which is unique in itself, which is what I just described up here, but being sticky makes it even cooler. So here's what that looks like on the, well, here's actually how you do it again. You add your Lottie using the HTML, and then you set it, and you set the CSS to make the actual code block sticky, and then you set this to be, the player is the sticky Lottie, which is the Lottie file HTML in this code block. The container is the actual section. So this is just the section in Oxygen. And then the actions are the number of frames, total number of frames, 0, seek, 0, and 1. And you can see how that works again here, which is everything's linked in the description. There's a big blog post about this, and there's the downloadable Lottie demo that you can use. And here's what you get. So we enter the viewport, and as we enter the viewport, the Lottie starts playing. So we're playing the Lottie, and it's sticky to the top of the page. So it continues to play and cycle through all of its frames until we get to the bottom, and it hits the bottom and it stops playing. And then we continue scrolling, and as soon as we leave the viewport, it's done playing. So as you can see, if you make your own Lotties, or if you find the perfect Lottie for this type of content, it can be really cool. You could set something to bounce based on the height of this element. So it would bounce, and then it would bounce, and then it would bounce. It could be a product demo, maybe an iPhone. If you're selling an app, the iPhone could be switching and swapping around. This could be used at a very high level. So simple effect to integrate. You can see how it works yourself by downloading the cheat sheet, but it's a pretty unique effect that you can use. And then finally, here's just a huge Lottie added to a section of its own, set to move around when we scroll the page. Just a really big, unique effect. And that's how you add a Lottie to a web page. The final thing I'm going to talk about, and if you're good and you're ready and you just want to add a Lottie, use the method I just told you, which is using the Lottie web player, using the Lottie web player interactivity library, copying and pasting the HTML, copying and pasting the pre-made JavaScript from this website, and calling it a day, which is good enough for most people. But if you want to get advanced, and I'm not going to get too advanced in this video because it's already crazy long and it gets confusing. If you want to get advanced, you can integrate Lotties using the method outlined in the Airbnb documentation. And this, the only thing I'm going to show you how to do here is make it so you can play the Lottie on the click. So you click a button and bam, congratulations, check mark. You click a button, you open your gift. So congratulations, you have a new gift. Bam, there's your gift. And then maybe with JavaScript, once it sees that the frames run out here, you can display a discount code or something. The way to do that is different than the way I just talked about. So if you're going to get confused, get out of here. If you're not going to get confused, stay and I'll show you how this works. This is a little bit different. So it's self-contained within its code block, which hopefully makes it less complicated. We're going to be using a completely different JavaScript library and a completely different way of initializing this effect. So here's what we're going to do. First, we add the script. This is a CDN script, and it's the body moving Lottie SVG min script. That's just how we're going to set this up. Then we add the Lottie div, which is just a single div with nothing in it, and the class is a unique class. So the main thing to do is add this to the header of your WordPress website, add the body moving Lottie SVG min script to the header of your website, then within the actual page, add a div and then give it a custom class. And I did this in a code block, but because we're using Oxygen, you can actually go and take this and add a div and add styling rules to the div and just set a custom class on the div by going to the div and clicking and entering a custom class name. So we've done that. Now we need to set the parameters of this div. So we're going to take the unique ID that we just gave to the div in the HTML PHP section of the code block, and we're just going to set a width and a height. So that defines how big your Lottie is going to be. Now we're going to go into the JavaScript and add our Lottie. And this is how you add a Lottie in JavaScript. Pretty simple and easy to understand, I'd say. The container is the element ID, path is the URL to the JSON, and then a couple other options here, but I'll show you it in our setup. This is the actual information on the Lottie. This is different CSS because we're going to play the Lottie when clicked. That's what we're doing here, and it's the simplest of this type of integration, but you can get really complex. You can set up whole animation sequences. You can toggle this on buttons. You can do pop-ups. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do because it's basic basic JavaScript. You just set an event and then you toggle the animation based off the event, and you can set sequences like that. But this is just a simple video that shows how to use the second method of integrating a Lottie and then toggling it on a click. So basically, if you don't really understand this, you can copy and paste from this demo page. So we've added the Lottie container using just a single div and a custom CSS class. Then we've set the height and width of that div in the CSS of the code block using the custom CSS class, so it's applied to the class. And then finally, we set this JavaScript, and I would say just copy and paste this JavaScript. And in this JavaScript, there are a couple things to change. Here, set this to be the unique identifier of the Lottie in the PHP. Then, the renderer has to be SVG because we're only loading the SVG library. And the only other thing you change here is the path to the JSON file for your Lottie. So you get that again by going to the Lottie Files website, copy and pasting the animation URL, and then just paste it into here. Loop and autoplay are both false. Nothing else has changed. The only additional change here is that you need to change this to match. 0 stays the same, but 28 is changed to match the total number of frames in your Lottie. So in this example, the total number of frames is 71. So we would change the 28 here to 71. That's the only thing you need to change here. So just change the URL, change the identifier, and then change the number of frames. And then you can also customize it by changing check marks to the spot, which shows up 3 times to a unique identifier. You can also change animation skip forward by changing this and this. And if you have multiple instances of clickable Lottie files, you'll need to do animation skip forward and then change this to be unique on another instance. So I'll show you that here. Different Lottie is being toggled here, same play on click. And the way we do that here is animation skip forward to choosing the Lottie the same way. And we also changed this to get the gift, which shows up here, here, and here. So basically copy and paste everything and you'll be good to go. Different Lottie, different URL, different Lottie, so different number of frames. So we have to set the frames to be that. And what this does is it sees that you click on the Lottie, and when you click on the Lottie, it toggles the animation 1 time. That's it. That's all it does. But it does it in a different way than the initial way that I showed you, which was using the Lottie web player, which is easier to use but not as powerful to integrate. If you're looking for a powerful integration, do it this way. look at this documentation, but it's not contained in the cheat sheet. All right, so I hope this video didn't confuse you more than it helped you. Whatever the case is, there's a long blog post on how to add Lotties to the Oxygen Builder. And there's also this cheat sheet, which you can download from the first link in the description below. And this is really helpful because you get everything that I just messed around on the back end. You get the shortcodes too. So you copy and paste the shortcodes into your website and you get exactly this. So you can go into the section and you can click on each individual Lottie element and see, oh, he added it by doing this PHP HTML code. Oh, he set it to move around on the page by using this specific JavaScript. And you can do exactly what I'm doing on this screen and just click through and see how it works. So I recommend taking a look at the blog post linked below. I recommend downloading this and taking a look on your website, but it's fairly simple and fairly easy to add a Lottie to an Oxygen Builder website, even though there's no third-party add-on, even though there's no built-in widget like some other page builders out there. It's pretty easy, and if you just want basic scrolling effects or looping Lotties, and you've seen the use cases in this video, that's how you would do it. If you guys want a more advanced tutorial on how to do something like this, which is using the default way of adding a Lottie specified in this documentation and then using a ton of event listeners and custom JavaScript to toggle it when you want it and how you want it, that's a lot more advanced, a lot more custom JavaScript. But if you want that tutorial, let me know. If you found this tutorial helpful on adding a Lottie to an Oxygen Builder website in WordPress, let me know in the comment section. Drop a subscription to this channel and give this video a like. And please be sure to check out the blog post linked below and also the Lottie cheat sheet linked below. Both of them are very helpful to add these very powerful and very lightweight animation tools that is definitely better than a GIF, definitely better than a video. So this is how you add Lotties to your Oxygen website. And hopefully this was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.